Hi, and welcome to Focus on Health. I'm Jay Cohen, the director of the Winsted YMCA, and we're happy to have you with us tonight. Each episode, we talk to individuals and businesses and organizations in our community that are doing great things to help people stay healthy and active and really connected in the community. And tonight, as always, we've got another wonderful guest, actually one of my colleagues, Pam Weltzine, who is the Y House manager in Torrington. And so we're going to learn all about what Pam does and how that impacts people and helps people in the greater Winsted and Torrington area. So welcome, Pam.
Thank you so much.
So you're still relatively new to our Y family. When did you come on board?
I started the last week of August of 2013, so I'm definitely still in the honeymoon stage.
Yeah, although time flies. I can't believe it's been that long yet.
It does, I know. It's crazy.
So tell us a little about what your position involves.
It's the day-to-day management of the Y House, which is single-room occupancy units that are located above the YMCA facility in Torrington. I have 42 rooms, so most of the time I have 42 residents. And they're different individuals, different walks of life, who some of them came from homeless situations, some of them have lost their homes, and they needed a place to stay.
That's excellent. And I'm sure it's got similarities to the housing we have at the Winsted Y in that there's constant waiting list, people looking to get in.
Yep, there is. And there's an application process. The biggest thing that's hard for me are people are desperate to find a place to live and they don't appreciate that we have an application and we have to verify things and we do a criminal background check. So that's one of the hardest things with my job is getting people not to just give up, to tell them, hang on, because, yes, I have other applications, but I might not be able to vet them appropriately, and then you're next on the list.
Yeah, it needs to be a good fit for the other people who live in that community as well as the rest of the people who are making use of the Y.
Right.
Yeah. And so what's kind of the typical person who comes to the Y House, if there is such a thing?
Right now, what I'm seeing a lot of are people who lost their jobs in the most recent economic downturn. They've been job hunting. They haven't been able to replace the employment they had, or they haven't been able to find anything at all. Their unemployment has run out. They've run through their savings, situations like that. I have people who have retired. Things didn't go as planned. Their retirement accounts took a beating in the downturn, and now they're finding themselves very income limited. I have people who are, retired teachers, and we do have some people who actually are on Social Security disability, for different reasons. So very, very broad scope of people that come into the Y in all different age groups.
And how long is someone typically at the Y?
I have a couple of residents who have been at the Torrington Y House since it was remodeled in 2000. So they've been there going on 14 years. Wow. And most people, I'd say, from what I've seen since I started there, typically it's like 2 years.
Okay. And is it, would you say it's the goal of most residents to find other options, or are they typically happy where they are?
We are permanent supportive housing, so they can stay for as long as they want. A lot of the applicants that I have processed in the past 6 months are people who are definitely looking to replace a job that they have lost. I have one person who came through the armed forces and was honorably discharged and finished a degree and is now full-time employed, and her goal is to get an apartment again, and not have a room at the Y. But she's very happy with it because she has the room, it's safe, it's secure, she knows her neighbors, she has full use of the facilities. And she said a big thing for her has been able to get into the gym when she gets home from work at night. She swims laps, uses the treadmill. So that's a big bonus for everybody who lives at the Y House.
Yeah, that is great that she's taking advantage of it, because I know probably the majority of people don't take advantage of it. I know in the similar, for the housing we have in Winsted,
yep.
The majority, the full residents don't take advantage of that benefit.
Yep, I've been playing it up a lot, and I do have a couple of residents who just since the new year have come to me and said, how do I get started? Who can show me around the gym? Who can help me figure out what's appropriate for me to do and what's not appropriate for me to do? So it's really exciting to see people getting interested in that.
Sure, because not only do we want them in housing, we want them to be healthy and successful, and being active and have a healthy body is a huge piece of that. It keeps you motivated and focused. And Absolutely. Now, also, when you were telling me that, you said her, and I think most of the time when people are thinking about housing, supportive housing, at least I tend to get a picture of a man. So,
I would say my population at the White House is about 60% male and 40% female.
So it's a
fairly even
yeah,
split. A
absolutely.
fairly even split.
Interesting. So now how do you handle it when people come to you kind of as a family? I know that it's only individual apartments. So how do you help families who are in a tight spot?
I always take the time to talk to them, whether it's on the phone or people will come to the lobby in the Y, and if I'm available, I'll go downstairs and sit down. I always bring a pad with me, and if it is a family and they are actually homeless, I will steer them to some of the local shelters. I send people to your manager up here, Bruce,
Sure.
quite often. I know he has a waiting list, but he does have family rooms.
Yeah.
And try to give them some guidance, send them to the Torrington Housing Authority, and then other in surrounding towns, housing authorities that might have something open.
Sure. And now say it's just a couple without kids, can they actually get independent rooms at the same facility?
They can. It's a little bit awkward because one of our rules is that residents are not allowed to visit back and forth to each other's rooms. So,
That could create a sticky situation.
It could. So I try to make it very clear that, yes, they can both apply independently for a room, but that is one of the rules.
Okay. Great. Now, certainly working with housing has got you involved in different aspects, and I know you're working on something that's part of a statewide initiative right now. It's called the Point in Time Survey.
Point in Time Survey. January 29th, the night of January 29th this year, and I'm new to this, the Point in Time Survey, I'm actually going to come up here to Winstead, and we have actual interviews that we have to do with everybody who's occupying one of your homeless beds and find out where they came from, how long have they been there, how long do they anticipate staying, and then enter all of that information into a database, which actually is not just statewide, but it's national. And it gives them from year to year an idea of what's going on with homelessness, how many people are being served. It also gives us an opportunity, if you were, say, in 2013 had increased how many beds you had, we can put that into the system that there's been an increase in beds.
Okay. Excellent. So do you coordinate this? I mean, obviously you said it's part of a state and national program, so how does that all get orchestrated?
Bruce and I both have access. It's actually not a software program, it's a data management system called HMIS, and I've been trained in it, and they do trainings. I went to one last Thursday night down in Southbury, which the people who manage the HMIS system put on to show us what this year's forms are going to look like, how to fill them out, what they're looking for. And some of it is a little bit crazy because if you have a veteran who's a head of household, you don't put them in the household part, it has to go down in the veteran part. So it's kind of some, what people will call typical government things,
Sure.
about not putting slot A there, it has to go over there. And then it was interesting though to talk to other people from this area who run homeless shelters, and there's one in Torrington called Project Overflow. And that's when it opens in the winter when there's no other beds, and people can go in. And it gives you a really good perspective on the demographics. And it's not just people who are coming into our supportive housing, but it's people who are homeless. It doesn't know any age boundaries. It doesn't know any education boundaries. There are people who are well past retirement age, and there are very young people who are stuck, partially because of the economy or because of a familial situation, a lack of appropriate education to get out there and be able to support themselves. So it's been a really interesting learning process for me.
Excellent. So how is this all being addressed? I know there's a plan that's been developed in Northwest Connecticut.
Yep. The Community Foundation in Torrington actually just published their plan to end homelessness, and I meant to bring a copy of the booklet with me and I forgot it, but it is available if you contact the Community Foundation. And it actually has some personal stories from people who have been homeless, who have gone through, it's called the Continuum of Care in Litchfield County, and it tells their stories of how they got to be where they were and where they are now and what was done to help them. And the thing that stuck out most in my mind when I was reading it was when you have somebody who is living in their car, living on the streets, and they wind up being hospitalized for an injury from the cold or something happens, it literally can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout the year to help that person. Where if you get them into one of our permanent rooms, the cost drops phenomenally. And I think that's a really important point to get across to people, is that the biggest thing to end homelessness is to have more of these supportive housing that's affordable, so that people can afford to live there wherever they're working.
So it's really addressing the problems instead of the symptoms.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it sounds like a pretty ambitious undertaking.
It's a very ambitious undertaking. My understanding is it's a 10-year plan, and they've been making great progress in it. And another thing that was really eye-opening for me as I was reading it was what their goals were for 2010 and what they achieved, and what their goals were for 2011 and what they've achieved. And they are moving forward. It is improving. And I don't know if you can ever really end homelessness, totally, but there's certainly a lot that could be done to help get rid of the problem.
Sure. And so what are some of those milestones that they achieved? What stood out to you?
Actually, the White House was part of it, was having more permanent supportive housing rooms available, having more subsidies through HUD available, so that if somebody is, I believe it's $18,000 a year, if they're below that income level, they can get help paying their monthly rent. And having more awareness out there that what the expenses are that are involved with somebody who isn't housed appropriately or living in some place that's not meant to be lived in. And then they wind up getting sick, or they wind up getting frostbite, and they wind up being hospitalized. And if I don't even want to quote the numbers, but the expense of having them permanently supportive housed is 10% of what it is if they're chronically homeless.
It is expensive, and we know from just operating the shelter at the Y. And actually, as you know, just last month, we had our Freezing for a Reason to fundraise just for that, to operate our shelter. And actually, let me show you a little footage of what we did that night out at the town green. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Lynn Messinas from Woodbury, Connecticut.
Lynn, so what brought you here tonight?
I wanted to bring awareness to the homeless shelter here in Winstead, and I saw the ad in the YMCA brochure, and here we are, freezing for a reason.
That's wonderful. So I understand you're not here alone.
I'm not here alone. I'm here with my daughter Krista, her boyfriend TJ, my son Eric. A couple friends have stopped by, so it's a little party.
Well, it's definitely a good reason to be freezing. And so what did people think of it when you were telling them that you were going to be out here tonight?
That I was absolutely crazy, out of my mind. But they also became aware that there's a shelter up here in Winstead, which nobody knew. So Woodbury and South Ferry area is now aware of it, and everybody wants to kind of help out. So I've talked to Bruce, and we're hoping to make Woodbury a part of Winstead.
Well, that's fantastic. We're really happy to have you with us tonight. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Jason. Take care.
I'm Ben. I'm Jacob. I'm Tony. And I'm Hunter.
All right. And are you guys here representing a group?
Troop 27.
Troop 27. That's really wonderful. It's great that you guys are willing to do this for people you haven't met. So